welcome back to another edition of Research Fantasy presents our NBA DFS breakdown for Saturday, May 6th, 2017. This is a little bit of an interesting slate because for whatever reason I just opt to use FanDuel kind of as my go-to. Even though I play more on DraftKings, I still have more, I guess, loyalty to FanDuel. I don't know why, but I always open up there first. I know that DraftKings is offering a much larger 4-game slate. What I'll probably do is just handle these games tonight and then come back tomorrow during the day and do a video on the games being played tomorrow. But this 2-game slate, interesting, but at the same time, we have 2 games where they could end up being a little more one-sided than we'd like. Let's start with the Golden State at Utah. Utah has done a fairly good job of staying in games, so I won't completely go in on them. And personally, I actually like Utah quite a bit. So that is something, I mean, I'm hoping for them to pull off the upset here. But got a lot going against them. Obviously, Golden State, a good team. We saw Draymond Green put up another good game last time out. For whatever reason, you can call me crazy. I'm still not on the Draymond Green train. I understand he's been producing very well 4 games in a row now. But I'm just not sold that the point production is going to be consistent enough. Especially with Clay being used less. I think that, if you take 9 of those points away, all of a sudden he's not as good of a play. Obviously, he is a stuffer of the stat sheet, but you can't bank on, getting 10 points from steals and blocks. So I'm kind of on the fade Draymond Green bandwagon because I just think that that's where the crowd is going to go, and that's basically the biggest reason is just the crowd's going to go there. Much rather spend on FanDuel the extra $800 on Kevin Durant, who's just got a much higher ceiling. Steph Curry still on the radar, but just underwhelming right now, which is crazy. You'd think with George Hill out, it would have been the Steph Curry show. It, in fact, was not the Steph Curry show, but I still have hope for him. Klay Thompson, like I said, I mean, he's just not, it's 7,100. I mean, I guess he did okay last time because he was putting forth a more well-rounded game, but 6 assists ultimately not something you're going to see from Klay Thompson very often. The 6 rebounds, I can make an argument because I've seen him rebound before, and I think that that's reasonable that he could have that, but I just don't like him. I think he's more of a 25 to 27 fantasy point kind of play. Outside of that, I just really can't buy into anything else. If you want to punt Andre Iguodala, the minutes are probably going to be there. I don't hate that. On the Utah side of things, really tough to say what's going to happen. George Hill currently questionable with the toe issue that's caused him to miss a number of games throughout the year. Now it's made its way into the postseason. Definitely a huge drop-off in talent from he to Shelvin Mack. But to Shelvin Mack's credit, he has actually put together 2 fairly strong games in the absence of Hill. And at least on FanDuel, he's priced bare bottom at 2,700, where he can not easily, but he can get you, 8 to 10x value on this slate. Something you could definitely use because there's some big name guys to get in your lineup. Gordon Hayward performs well, price drops a little bit. Without George Hill, there's no hope for this team to win unless it's through Gordon Hayward, so I expect him to stay highly motivated and performing. Rudy Gobert, just not really getting it done. Pretty much in the Steph Curry position where they're priced high, but they're coming through with, fantasy outings in the late 30s. Not going to cut the mustard. I think it's totally reasonable that at some point Gobert will have a big game, so I'm not completely writing him off, especially since the position is kind of barren. And outside of that, I mean, you're taking a risk if you want to run guys like Rodney Hood, Joe Johnson, Joe Ingles, Derek Favors. The potential is there for one of them to have a good game, but it's a kind of a toss-up which one it's going to be. Moving on to Cleveland and Toronto. Toronto looked good, and it just still wasn't even remotely close to enough to take down the Cavs last night. So I cannot stand here and actually say that this series won't be wrapped up. Like, the Raptors just have not been there this series. DeRozan finally got things together last night, but it's still not enough. We'll get to them in a minute. In terms of Cleveland, it's basically just the LeBron James show at this point. He's doing everything you'd want from a guy who's the best player in the league. Behind him, I mean, Kevin Love had a good game, but it still wasn't enough to even crack 30 fantasy points, which is just increasingly puzzling to me. Kyrie Irving, 27 fantasy points. He's got upside. It's just such a weird mentality, even though we're like a few weeks into the playoffs now, how you're looking for 5x value and it's just not there. Like, these guys it's not built. The playoffs aren't built for 5x value, I almost feel. Kyle Lowry sat out the last game with an ankle issue. I mean, if he doesn't play tonight, it's a wrap, Toronto. Your team's not getting it done. Corey Joseph provides a good value around him. DeMar DeRozan, all the scoring's on his shoulders without Kyle Lowry, and we saw him ball out this year without Lowry. You can possibly look to Serge Ibaka. He hasn't really been getting it done this series. Jonas Valanciunas, last two games, Dwayne Casey finally decided to play him. It's looked like a good decision. I think you can go there. Guys I absolutely would not touch: DeMar Carroll, PJ Tucker. I know the temptation is there because you're like, well, they can't possibly be that bad, but for the most part, they are. If I have to choose one of the two, it's going to be PJ Tucker. He actually seems to try to do things with his time on the court. 3,100, 15 fantasy points. Not out of the question. He's done it, twice in this series thus far. Well, once, and then he came close last night, 14.5. Just honestly, on this slate, not a lot to really get excited about. If it's me, I'm probably building around LeBron, Kevin Durant. I'm going to use Shelvin Mack and Corey Joseph if we know that Lowry's going to be out. That's the other thing. Dwayne Casey playing that, BS card of, well, he's available to play, but who knows if he will or not. I mean, stuff like that's just irritating. To me, that's a move that just smells of desperation so bad. It's really just pathetic. You can't really say much more than that. I typically like him as a coach, but that type of behavior is absolutely pathetic. It's the type of behavior of a loser, which at this point in this series is not completely false. They've lost all the games, but it reeks of desperation. Someone who thinks they're going to trick the competition into thinking that Kyle Lowry might play. Hate to break it to you, buddy. Didn't look great even when Kyle Lowry was playing. So that's a strategy I'm probably going to take a little bit cheap at point guard, spend up on LeBron and Durant, and then just fit guys in who don't make me completely sick to my stomach thinking about playing them. Norman Powell, I mean, he's a guy who's kind of priced right in that reasonable price range. And then I think the potential for Kyle Korver could be there as well with the minutes that he's saying. So that about wraps it up. I think Sunday might have a 3-game slate moving into Monday, so we'll kind of see what the sites decide to do with that. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Head over to researchfantasy.com. Sign up for our NBA mailing list. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Research and Win. And join us again tomorrow.